challenges that maybe buyers or sellers might be dealing with. So I'm just going to answer those real quick off the cuff, just like I would if my clients were asking me. So here you go. As far as the market goes right now, in Colorado specifically, it's extraordinarily active. Everybody already knows that. It's very competitive, which has pros and cons. On the buying side, it can be a big challenge in Colorado Springs specifically, especially under $300,000. Depending on what part of town you want to be on, maybe even under 400,000. And it's competitive. So what that means for buyers is you have to make quick decisions and you have to be confident in your decisions. So the biggest piece of advice that I give my buyers, whether they're brand new or experienced buyers, because even experienced buyers probably have not experienced a market like this, it's unique in its own way, is don't be in a hurry. Take your time, gather information, get out there and let's spend some time looking at houses in person. Looking at stuff online is fine, but the way that houses feel in real life, specifically how the neighborhood feels, how that vibes with what you like, you're really not going to know until you're there. And every neighborhood is different. So let's slow down, take some time together to look at houses. Honestly, I prefer at least 8 to 10, maybe even 10 to 12 houses, doing what I call practice shopping. We're kind of training for the real deal. So we get out and look at several houses in different neighborhoods and really get a feel for it, without ever thinking about writing an offer. Now, the reason why I do that is because the market is so competitive, you have to make a decision quickly. So whenever the house that you really want comes up, typically these days, especially in those kind of mid-lower price points, you have to pull the trigger on something within 24 hours, sometimes even quicker. That adds a lot of stress to the process because you don't really have time to process the purchase decision. And this is a huge decision. For most people, it's the biggest decision they make in their lives. So when you don't have time to really think through it, it can lead to buyer's remorse. You get it under contract, and then you sit back and you think, you stay up at night and you're like, oh my gosh, is this really the house? Am I sure it's the house? Maybe there's a better house. I don't know. That's normal. But the reality is, if you have been in, 5, 10, 15, 20 houses already, your confidence level in that being the right neighborhood and that being the right house, having the things that you want, how good it is for you relative to the other houses that we've seen, you can be a lot more confident in your decision, and that lowers the stress level through the process. The reality is, buying a house is a stressful process no matter what. As agents, our job is to minimize that stress for you as much as possible. We're here as a buffer, to advise you, to guide you, to take a lot of the hits in negotiations or things along the way that might stress you out. But if we can absorb that and make the process easy, then that's what we're here for. I always tell my clients that for me, I feel like I did my job right when we get to the closing table, they sign the paperwork, they get the keys, and they say, man, that was so much easier than I thought it was going to be. I promise you, it's usually not easy. But if it feels that way to them, then that means that I did my job well. So slow down, take your time. Don't plan on pulling the trigger right away. See the houses that are out there. And then when the right house comes along, you can be confident, you can be relaxed, and you can actually enjoy the process instead of stressing about it all along the way. Now, on the selling side, again, the market is hot. So that kind of comes with its own unique set of challenges, but it's not dissimilar. The same rule applies, in my opinion, that you should kind of slow down and take your time when you know you need to sell, unless it's, urgent, say, you're military and you found out you're deploying in a month. I mean, there's not a whole lot you can do about that. But if you are moving up in house, staying in the same area, you're not in a big time crunch, then I prefer to start kind of planning things at least a couple months ahead of time. Because things move so quickly, my goal is always to get your house under contract within the first 7 days, ideally, for the simple reason that your best chance to get the most for your house and to get the most favorable terms in that deal is within the first week or the first weekend, because that's when the house is shiny and new. That's when there are a lot of people coming in to see it. It's fresh on the market. And if we can tailor our marketing to maximize that, to get as most people in on the early end as possible, then hopefully we can create some competition. Competition drives the price up. Competition makes people ask for less things than they would otherwise. And that's the best case scenario. So the downside of that for a seller is if you are trying to buy another house at the same time, it again, back to stress. It can add stress to the process because you're thinking, oh my gosh, now I've got to find a house. I've got to work through the sale of my house. I have to somehow try and coordinate closings so that I'm not homeless. Again, that's my job. So trust me, or your agent, that we have this, that we've done it before. Believe me, we deal with this all the time. It is a stressful process, and there's no way around that. But we can really minimize that by planning ahead. So on the selling side, one of the main ways that I do that is, again, before we put the house on the market, I want to do that practice shopping. Let's get out there, 2 weeks, 4 weeks before we even plan on listing your house, and really drill down on what's out there, how it fits with what you expected, how it fits with what you like, the areas that you like, the types of houses that you like relative to what is actually on the market. So it's not just in your head. And then when we're getting closer to listing your house, we can get more serious because we can coordinate closings so that everything kind of comes together at the right time. Again, with an experienced agent, we do it all the time. It's part of our job. Time frames are always negotiable. And there's a lot of ways to make that work. I've never had a client be homeless in their selling/buying process. There's some things we can't control, but for the most part, it's very doable. But if you do that planning ahead and practice shop ahead of time, trust me, it takes a lot of the stress out of it so that you're confident you are going to have a place to be when your house goes under contract and finally sells. So again, it's a hot market, very competitive on the buying side. Take your time, slow down, get as much information as possible. And then when the time comes for you to make that transition, I promise you it'll feel a whole lot easier.